Hello there, I'm Hannah, and today we're going to be traveling to Ireland to explore the history of Christianity and some of its key components and people. Come with me. Down, 10 to go. We have arrived at glorious Ireland, as you can see. And before we dive into some specific locations, let's talk about how Christianity got here. So between the years 400 AD to 800 AD was kind of the spread of Christianity. But before Christianity kind of took off, Ireland was very much pagan, and it was called, the pagans were called Druids, and these people were pagan because they worshipped trees and kind of one with the world, and so just kind of a godless nation in that sense, a Christless nation in that sense. So since Ireland was kind of Christless and mostly pagan, the first missionary that touched down in Ireland was Saint Pelagius, and Saint Pelagius wasn't very successful in his mission there, and so preceding him we have Saint Patrick, and Saint Patrick was actually a slave living in Ireland and was there for 6 years. He tried to escape, and he did escape, but felt the call to God to go back and preach the paganistic culture and win souls for Christ, which he did, and he was extremely successful with that. He began building churches in northern and eastern Ireland, and actually behind me, as you can see, one of his churches is actually a barn, and it was one of the first locations where it was actually donated to him by one of his people that was converted during St. Patrick's time there. And it is located here in Northern Ireland, and it is chilly here in Northern Ireland. But yeah, so St. Patrick began to preach and kind of spread Christianity that way, building churches along northern and eastern Ireland, which then formed into monasteries, and that was also very successful. And so I'll transition into that topic to my good friend Maddie, who is in Ireland somewhere. So Maddie, take it away.
A big part of how Christianity spread around Ireland was the spread of monasticism and the popularity of monasteries. From the time around 500 AD to 700 AD, monasticism was being widely developed and becoming a popular tradition in Ireland. Now, paganism was popular when Christianity arrived, as most of the High Kings practiced paganism, and it stuck around for a few hundred years. The monasticism movement started to pick up because forts like these were being built for protection near and sometimes with monasteries. People were starting to repeat what the monks were doing, some imitating the private in a remote area with a simple routine, while others lived in congregations in elaborate monasteries. The great monasteries were famous centers of culture and learning, and the illuminated manuscripts which they produced were among the glories of Irish monasticism. The church's power structure was complex, with individual churches being highly independent, and some of them were free, while others were owned by aristocrats or monasteries. Glendalough Monastery was founded by St. Kevin, who was known as a hermit and an intellectual. However, he founded this as a form of retreat from the chaos that life brings. It was founded in between the 6th and the 7th centuries, and is just a small piece of what it used to be back in the day that it was founded. Now, everything that we have now of the Glendalough Monastery dates back to the 10th and the 12th centuries. Now we're here at the Glendalough Monastery, the ruins of where it used to be. Look how beautiful it is. Glendow is one of the most famous and important sites of monastic ruins in Ireland. Now, historically, St. Kevin and Glendalough belonged to the royal dynasty of Dalmasine Corb, who held lands from the Wicklow Mountains to the coast. The boasting of the monastery led it to become a pilgrimage attraction and was a cultural powerhouse and center of learning. Setting out first as pilgrims, Irish monks preached the gospel and established new communities across the continent. Ireland, unlike most of the rest of Europe, did not suffer barbarian invasion and acted as a repository of Christian civilization at a time when it was almost extinguished elsewhere. Now I'm going to send it over to my colleague Naomi Umfleet, who's going to talk about Irish monks who are becoming missionaries to take the Word of God and Christianity to other parts of the world.
A key feature with the Irish monks was their practice of asceticism, and therefore when the Irish monks decided to become missionaries, called peregrini, or those on a pilgrimage, they walked everywhere because of their commitment to asceticism, or self-denial. Usually, they traveled in groups of 12 plus one leader, just as Christ and his disciples.
One of the first Irish monks to leave Ireland was a monk called Columba, or Columcille, born in AD 521. In 563, he sailed to Iona, a small island off the coast of Scotland. There he established a monastic center, and then by the time he died in 597 AD, he established 23 missions in Scotland and 38 in Britain. Although Columba was the first Irish monk to leave Ireland, he wasn't considered a missionary. So the first truly great Irish missionary who inspired the later Exodus that happened earlier on was an Irish monk called Columban, or Columbanus, born in AD 540. Late in the 6th century, Columbanus made his way to Brittany and then eventually traveled to Italy. In the monasteries that he established, Columbanus taught both secular and religious topics, and the monks that he trained there went on to take the gospel to all across Europe. Saint Gall was also a very influential Irish monk. He established an abbey in Germany, which you can see behind me.
The first wave of Irish monks to leave Ireland and to go to other countries were known as academic missionaries because they combined secular and religious teachings. St. Gall's Abbey was a highly influential academic institution where St. Gall gathered the greatest library in all of Europe.
The Irish academic missionary movement was so successful. What made it this way, and what was their motivation? Many factors contributed to their success, one of which being that they had a full-orbed, holistic Christian worldview that believed that all living and learning was under Christ. This provided a wide range of learning, including secular and religious topics, which I covered before. This opened many doors that could have otherwise been closed. Through their established educational institutions, where they wrote many books and produced multiple libraries, they trained national leaders, including the well-known Charlemagne. The Irish monks, also within these monasteries, believed that the second generation of monks that were being taught were supposed to be indigenous to the country that they were in. The Irish missionary movement died because of corruption. Their fame and reputation led to wealth, which led to greed. They also had a lot of temperance and drunkenness, which affected their credibility and their impact. In 2016, 78% of the population was Roman Catholic within Ireland. Also, there was 2.8 Protestant. Christians today can learn a lot from the Irish monks' example. Their passion for evangelism and their love for Christ is what made their movement so successful.